So now our next speaker is my friend Lidietta Giorno. She should be here. Unfortunately, she's not, but she came to KAUST several times. She has a very important role in chemical engineering, biotechnology, in membrane, which is my field, and also in the leadership. I know has been a role model for many, younger and not as young also. I think it's a very important role in being a leader, director of institute and so on. So, Lidietta, it's a pleasure to have you again.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good morning to everybody. Good afternoon, actually. And thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm really would have liked to be there for sure once more, but unfortunately things were not in line with this happening. Do you see my slides?
Yes, we see.
Okay, perfect. So it's very exciting to be in these sessions. I've followed since this morning and I found all of them extremely interesting. And I will try to give also my perspective and point of view. And as my title says, I will try to go through membrane technology and gender filter by playing with terms, trying to understand what makes things move or retain in the career of women and in the environment of the work. I work at the National Research Council of Italy at the Institute of Membrane Technology. We are located in the south of Italy. This is a view from the space. And we are located within the campus of the University of Calabria. Just to highlight where we are, so we can just be close to each other. So I'm seated over here, and you are down here, so we are just 2 hours shifted. And once I wanted to start, I don't know how to move this. I wanted to start with trying to give some credit and recognition to women. So what we are now today, it comes from the work that has been done also in the past, from several women. Let me try if I can understand how to move this. Can you see you see covered probably the title, right? Because there's this part over here, at least I see. I try to move like that. Okay.
We see well, don't
okay, perfect. I see another bar that I don't know how to move, but as long as you see, that's fine. So we all know Marie Curie, and we know that she is one of the few, or she's the only woman who has won twice the Nobel Prize in different disciplines. So she used to say, how is life with a genius? Then she said, I don't know, ask my husband, because she was very tough and very proud of what she could do. And okay, and then I just organized this in terms of time, let's say, in terms of age. I put this here because Michele's and enzyme kinetics, many times I realized that students, they don't know that Menden was a woman. So the perception always when you know something in science is that this comes from a male environment. But as we all know, the major example of injustice, I would say, towards a woman scientist was Rosalind Franklin, who really discovered DNA because she made the experimental proof that the DNA has this double helix, but when the Watson, Crick, and Wilkins, at least the history says that Wilkins showed this picture to Watson, and he was enthusiastic because this was the proof of what he had hypothesized with the model. But the experimental proof was given by her, and when they won the Nobel Prize, Rosalind was not even mentioned by the colleagues. Of course, history is making justice because this is said more and more, and but this is just to highlight that the environment in the past was certainly not friendly for women in science, and what allowed them to establish extraordinary results was just their outstanding motivation and talent, of course. Here I just went through a brief history of highlights in membrane science and technology. I put some date, okay, just to localize things that were happening in science, and nearby there is also some notes of what was the historical context where this kind of knowledge evolution was grown. And I find this quite extraordinary, because if we consider that around 1950s and 60s, still problems with injustice, with different behavior between white and black, and so, and then the women were absolutely not favored in science. And what I want to highlight through all this list, not going through one by one, but it was just to have an imaginary journey through this, and in particular to localize when the membrane societies then were established. It was just in the 80s. First society was the Japan Membrane Society. Then the European Membrane Society was established in 1982, and then the North American Membrane Society and the subsequent one in the other years. This is just to say that even though already since past 2 centuries, something on membrane was studied, but indeed, last century was the one where most knowledge was promoted, which means that membrane science and technology is certainly relatively new compared to other major disciplines that are well established. And again, I find quite incredible, that still in the half of last centuries, we had so many discrepancies between gender equality and race equality. And for what concerns the role of women in the European Membrane Society, since now we are in the European analysis of these aspects, I can say that in the membrane science and technology, the role of women has always been quite important. So, for example, 40% of the presidents of the European Membrane Society have been female. And the gender dimension in my institute, for example, that we are totally dedicated to membrane science and technology. We are 57% female and 43% men. And this is a little bit the structure, I would say, or the evolution through times. In the top level positions, we have same percentage of men and male. In the intermediate level position, we have more female than male, and same thing in the basic level. So I was one of the 10% director of the institutes of the National Research Council, and I was probably the youngest director at national level. In my experience, what I can say that, of course, the environment is male-shaped. But I did not find it hostile. No, it was always, of course, the majority of approach or way to act or point of view was male style, but it was not extremely difficult to handle, to act and to work. In general, these are, I think, some exceptions, because in general, if we analyze the data on a larger scale, at least on the basis of data that I have, the general trend is that you can see here. Now we have more than 60% of researchers are women at the basic level. Then as you go further, professors or research directors, depending whether you are in a university or a research institution, decrease to 20 to 30%. And when you arrive to the top level positions, this percentage is less than 10%. So there is this inversion, no, from having an extremely large platform of women scientists, but then as you go upper and upper, this is restricted. On the basis of the actual tendency, there is an estimation that it will take 136 years to reach the true gender equality in science with this type of speed. Considering that we are membranologists and we study transport, we study, we have a membrane as a barrier, no? As a kind of phase that governs the transport on the basis of driving forces, on the basis of something that obstacles the transport and so on. And depending on the type of structure of the membrane, you can have different types of contacts, mechanisms, and so on. I tried to figure out what are the barrier and driving forces, no, that may speed up or break the development of the career of women in science. Of course, through the lectures that we have seen today, we have quite well mapped the reasons and the motivations. But in my experience, or in my point of view, I think that what is the driving force is certainly a personal motivation. And the barrier or the brakes are certainly in the cultural habits or cultural legacies. No? I agree with people who say that success is a function of KPT, no? K, knowledge, practice, and talent. And the size of the letter illustrates the importance that they have in this kind of function. For sure, knowledge has the highest weight. The practice is extremely important. The talent has to be there, but probably is not the highest or the most important parameter, because if you have talent but you don't really use it, and you don't train, you don't improve through knowledge, this won't help too much to make the difference, let's put it this way. But of course it has to be there, no, it is not zero, otherwise the success won't be such high. But of course there are also boundary conditions that might influence on how to pursue, on how to push, on how to achieve all these parameters in a good balance. No? And the boundary conditions for female and male are different, as we know. In Europe, at least, I think nowadays they are very hard for both female and male. And probably for female, for women, the historical period is a little bit more favorable than for men. We have to understand how to remove or how to prevent these breaks in order to make a more balanced, a more equilibrated environment, so that people can choose what they want to do. No? They don't have to be pushed or forced to demonstrate something that eventually they don't are really not interested in. In my opinion, it is important to reshape the cultural attitude. You know, of course, this is very general and cannot be applied in all geographical area, but it depends on the social, cultural, and economical dimension. No, my experience in Europe, and I have visited other countries, of course, like United States, other countries in Europe, China as well. And I must say that among the different societies that I have visited, for example, different institutions, I find that the Chinese ones are those where the woman can sit in extremely high level, top level position more frequently and in a more natural way that it happens in other countries. Probably in Europe, the other country that I have seen such a high level of, let's say, natural behavior is Poland. In Poland, I found in many universities that rectors of the university were a lot of women already since the 40s. So in my opinion, it is important to rethink the cultural role of female and male in the society and in the family. But of course, this is not something that we can do just by thinking, you know, by decision. It takes time. It needs to have different things to take care of. I think that one important aspect is that we as women must realize that men must have the same right and not only the same duties as women. No? I must admit that I see a lot of discrimination towards men, no? Except than at work and in the social role, but in the family or in the more private world, they are much more, let's say, discriminated. From the legal point of view, I think that the compulsory abstention for paternity as for maternity should be a must, no? Because even though we just have a career break as female and then we can just recover this time when we contribute to other competitions and so on, but it has a different perception if you oblige the father to take care of the child or the children as a mother do. Of course, we cannot change nature, no? Something has to be done by women, but why not giving also to men the right to stay with their children? And the compulsory career break for fathers must be something obvious, no? Because in this way, when you have to recruit someone, you don't care if it is a male or a female, because the career break will happen anyway. So the perception is that we should think more of rights from the male point of view in order to be more strong in the rights and from the woman point of view. I think that another limit of women, and we all know that we are like this, we tend to believe that we can do so many things at once, no? And then we get fouled and we get just stuck. We should accept that we are not like the Kali goddess, no? With multiple hands and being able to do so many things. We are forced to do many things, but we must accept, we must recognize that this is for sure a break, no? It's something that breaks us. And another aspect, when we educate children, we must know that we must realize that we are the healthy carriers of male chauvinism, okay? The way we educate nowadays our children will impact on their life in the future. And again, in my role in being director for almost 10 years of an institute, which is, as I showed you, in percentage more female than men, I see, no, the tendency of women to believe that we are better than men in doing things, at least in taking care of children, in doing all those things that we are certainly more formed, more educated to do. But we must accept and we must trust, you know, the way also male organize things and do things and so on. And another point of view that I can see the difference. Now, we are, as women, we are struggling, we fight to have success and to have positions and to grow up in terms of career and so on. But indeed, something very often things happen by chance, by conditions, let's say, because the boundary conditions are favorable, but we are not culturally forced to have a success at work, not to have a good job, to have a good salary and so on. Men are culturally obliged to do that. No? So that's why we have to also consider this kind of perception. In the past, of course, they had all the society, the family organized to support them for having all the time to work. Nowadays, the pressure on having success at work is not decreased, but the pressure on let's say, the environment that works and makes the men in the central of the world is changing. So I think men have also had a time in this time, and the important thing is also to govern the transition, no? From the different attitudes, and this can be really challenging in different areas. Governing the transition is important because we need to govern contrasts. No? I've heard in some of the previous relations where, of course, we have to avoid to create contrast that the perception of this from the society, especially those who are more reluctant not to have women in high position in the society. This is seen as the motivation, the reason why men have so many problems in finding a job, in finding a good job, and so on. Future generations. I very often see in the new generations that women or men, they say, you know, I don't want to have a career because I want to take care of my children, because I had the perception when I was a child that my mother was working too much, and while the other child had always their mother around, I was the only one or the few one that was not in this contest. No? So we really have to take care of that all the efforts that have been done through the years and in the position where we are now won't be perceived by the new generations, and then they don't react in an opposite way to invert the tendency, okay? Because this is, unfortunately, is something that we have to care of. I think the main aim is that we might ideally reach the situation where there is a freedom, you know, for men or for female in choosing their role, and they don't have to be forced or perceived that they are not doing their good job in the society. This, of course, it takes time, and this again, it depends on the socio-economical and cultural dimension, which of course affects, this is the boundary conditions that affects the knowledge, practice and talent of women and men. If we just put this, all this things in terms of development stage and efforts that women in science are putting, at least in Europe or in Western countries, let's say, I would say that the women in top-level positions are still between an emerging stage and an exploratory stage. There are, of course, examples where women have extremely important responsibilities, but in general, the level of the career is large in the very basic stage, and is reasonable in the intermediate, but in the top level is still very, very difficult. In general, what I try to see is again here the tree of life, no, where we have The root is the knowledge. Then we have to educate people. We have to transfer this knowledge, which is the only way we can have an healthy growth. No? And of course, the words that are most important again is education, sharing, open collaboration. These are the conditions, the boundary conditions that may reduce the breaks that we find from the social point of view. Creative cooperation and looking at things in a different way, of course, it makes extremely a difference. And as we know, when the committees or when the places where important decisions have to be taken, the more they are diverse, the higher is the probability that all the different aspects can be considered. And just to conclude and to confirm that I fully agree with colleagues that before than me, they have pointed out that why we do this, no? Not only because we have the anxious tension to demonstrate that we are good, that we want to do things, but because what we do, what we know, what we transfer, it has an added value to the world, to the overall community. And of course, what we study, what we progress has a positive impact in all those global challenges that we experience and we face today. And of course, we must, and we know, without too much tension, without too much pressure, we know that we can play a role, and we do it just because it's the right thing to do in order to shape a world which will be better for our children. No? Sometimes when I hear or when I say that I don't prioritize my career compared to my children, no? I don't see in this way. Maybe because I don't have children, so I can just see from the outside. I think that when I am involved in science or in doing, in having my role in the society, as a mother or as a responsible person, what I do is that I shape the world in which my children, my nephews and so on will live. So I have to contribute because it's not enough just to feed them, okay? It's not just to take care of them practically, but it's important also to try to shape the world in which they will live safe. And just to conclude, I would like to invite you to the Euromembrane 2022. I mentioned that the European Memory Society was founded in 1982, so this year we celebrated the 40th anniversary of the European Memory Society. This conference will be performed from 20 to 24 November 2022 this year in Sorrento, Naples, in Italy, near our place. And with this, I would like to thank you very much and hope to see all of you in Sorrento.
Okay, thank you very much. We also, so a question, anybody want to start? Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for the very excellent presentation. A lot of interesting facts. There is a question from Sarah Durini online who said that, do you think, so she thinks that it is crucial to underline that gender roles are affecting both women and men, obviously. And the question is, do you think that having more women in decision-making position will help with this?
Yes, I think so. I mean that I would always to have a committee or a table where people discuss, which is composed by diverse gender, no? Certainly from women, male, and also from different age, you know, because we see a dramatic speed in changing of the habit of the way to live. So we need to have at the same table where we discuss and where we take decision, at least to hear the opinion of other people, which are in different ages, both younger and also older than the normal time. But definitely, I think to have the opinion from different approaches, from different perspective, is extremely important. So it is important to have men, women, different ages, different geographical area as well.
We have another question from.
Yeah, can you stop sharing because we cannot see your face on the screen? And it's,
I'm trying to do it while I'm okay. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And we have a question from Damien.
Yes, thanks for your nice talk. So I have a question. What is your position on quotas? So on trying, because actually you have stressed this problem of gender inequality, especially at the directorial stages when you go up the hierarchy. So what is your position on trying artificially boosting this proportion with some kind of positive discrimination? So I'm curious, because actually tomorrow I will speak a bit in this direction in the peer review system. So I find some interesting relations.
Yeah, you know, my role was has been to be the director of the institute, you know, from the scientific point of view. So I certainly did not, let's say, push. We have a gender issue in our institute, but it is the other way around. You know? Is we have more women than men, and so on. So if we have to take care of balancing this, we should try to favor a woman. But from the practical point of view, or from the operative point of view, from the legal point of view, I mean, I don't have a voice in impacting this part. But certainly, operatively, I think it is important to give more flexibility to women and to men, I mean, to father and mother for sure, more flexibility to both in equal ways. When they have children, of course, you have to be more adaptive with time, with type of work that they can also do, and so on. So to adapt the program also to what they will be able to perform in the best way. And it is very difficult because, you know, the first things that you have to consider when you recruit a scientist is quality, no? Is the excellence in terms of knowledge, in terms of dedication, in terms of motivation, and these are the major things. And a very important aspect is also the character, no? Because the character, when you are an easier person that you can easily let's say, share things or behave. And for this, you know, the character of people is really shaped also by the environment where they live. So it is extremely, I spend most of my time while being director. I think I can say 70% of my time I spend just trying to understanding what were the best conditions where people could be happy, no, could be really come at work in the lab, and with all the problems and difficulties that we might face, but being sure that their opinion is considered, and trying to explain very clearly that when you take a decision, even though it's a decision that impacts negatively the life, career, or the interest of a person, but they have to understand why you take that decision, no? In name of what? In name of something that is more objective than individuals. So they immediately won't agree, of course, and they will be very tough against you, but they will understand that you are not doing things just because of empathy, or but you are doing things because you are considering how to improve, no? How to grow altogether. So I always try to give people the motivation to think of being competitive, because otherwise we cannot really progress, but within a context, not within an objective.
So we have one short question from the audience.
Hello. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. I wanted to ask you, like, I see that in your actual environment, you have the opposite situation where you have more women than men, but that's not the case in most of the places in the world. And I wanted to ask you, like, what is your point of view on women trying to help other women in this position, like kind of like in your area you're trying to find like equality, but in our area like here we are trying to find equality but in the opposite position. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think that of course we have to create the conditions that women can compete, no? That women feel encouraged, feel understood. But I want to create conditions that favor in a way that is not, let's say, if you have the same, exactly the same conditions, okay, the same situation when you are in front of choosing a kind of person or knowledge and so on, I really would select on the basis of motivation. No? It is true that very often women are much more motivated, and this is obvious because they fight more chances, they fight more challenges. So they build a kind of higher resistance, resilience. But this, I think, once you, because, you know, we are anyway talking of science, and we have to guarantee the level of the collaborators that we recruit, the environment, and so on. And once this is guaranteed, I think that the capability to understand each other and the motivation makes the difference. So knowledge, practice, and talent, they are the three items.
I think we could discuss forever. It is
Yeah.
our pleasure, Lidietta, always, but I think we have to go on. I just want to mention, I think from the quota, and so what Lidietta is saying also, in other words, if you create the right environment for women to succeed, they will succeed. So the fact that in her institute, there are such a percent of women, successful women, very good scientists, and then I don't know, I think it's maybe not by chance. Lidietta was director there for many years.
Yeah, for the maximum 2 mandates, for 10 years.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe it is not only a coincidence that there's now a larger number of women, successful women there. I think maybe it's the environment counts that she created. Thank you very much, Lidietta.
Thank you very much.